Admiral Kim Soo-jin had never felt so small. The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council stretched endlessly above her, their surfaces catching and bending light in ways that hurt to look at directly. Her dark blue Earth uniform seemed like a child's costume next to the flowing robes and energy fields of the other delegates. This was supposed to be humanity's greatest moment, first contact with a galactic civilization. Instead, it felt like walking into a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided. The massive chamber held representatives from dozens of species. Some walked on legs, others floated, and a few seemed to exist as pure thought given form. But all of them watched the humans with the same expression, if it could be called that. Pity mixed with something else. Fear? No, that wasn't right. It was the look someone gives a wild animal that's about to be put down. Lieutenant Park Min-ho stood at her right shoulder, his hand resting on his sidearm. The young officer's jaw was tight, his eyes constantly scanning the alien faces around them. Captain Lee Do-yoon, their xenobiologist, was doing the opposite, trying to take in every detail. Her scientific mind still working, even in this nightmare scenario. At the center of the chamber, something moved. The hierarchy's leader was not quite solid, not quite energy. Its form shifted between metal and light, sometimes tall as a building, sometimes compact as a person. When it spoke, the words bypassed the ears entirely and planted themselves directly in their minds. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the entity said, though welcome was the last thing this felt like. "You have traveled far to join our council. You're pleased by your ... enthusiasm." Soo-jin stepped forward, her prepared speech ready. Years of diplomatic training had led to this moment. "Thank you for receiving us. Earth looks forward to joining the galactic community in silence." The word hit like a physical blow. Around the chamber, alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. "There are protocols," the entity continued. "Standards that must be met. We will show you what happens to those who refuse integration." The chamber darkened. Above them, a hologram materialized, a planet hanging in space. It was beautiful, with swirling blue oceans and green land masses wrapped in white clouds. Cities glittered on the night side like scattered jewels. Ships moved in orderly patterns around orbital stations. "The Villani homeworld," the entity explained. They believed themselves special, unique. They thought their culture, their independence, their military strength made them valuable to the council. Soo-jin felt her stomach drop. She knew what was coming. They were wrong. The flash came without warning. One moment the planet was alive and thriving. The next it was a ball of molten rock surrounded by debris. Billions of lives gone in an instant. The orbital stations were twisted metal. The ships were vapor. Min-ho's hand moved to his weapon, but Soo-jin grabbed his wrist. Round them. She could hear the sharp intake of breath from her small delegation. Do-yoon was pale, her scientific detachment finally cracking. The Villani thought themselves unique. The entity's voice carried a note that might have been satisfaction. They refused integration. This is their legacy. The hologram shifted, showing other worlds. Dozens of them, all reduced to slag and ash. All bearing the same story. Species that had tried to maintain their independence, their cultures, their right to exist as they were. The pattern is always the same, the entity continued. New species join the council full of pride and defiance. They speak of their achievements, their potential contributions. They demand equality, respect, partnership. The creature's form pulsed brighter. But there is only one way to achieve galactic peace: unity, conformity. Standard Protocol 7 ensures this unity. All species follow the same laws, speak the same languages, worship the same concepts, pursue the same goals. Diversity breeds conflict. Independence breeds war. They have eliminated both. Soo-jin found her voice. And if we comply, then humanity survives. Your people will be relocated to designated worlds. Your children will be educated in proper thinking. Your culture will be ... adjusted. Within 3 generations, you will be model citizens of the galactic community. Your unique human perspectives will be preserved in our archives, studied by future xenanthropologists. As specimens, Minho said quietly, the entity's attention turned to him like a searchlight. As success stories, young warrior. The alternative is extinction. Dayun stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. What exactly are you demanding? Humanity will surrender all military assets within one orbital cycle. Your species will adopt Council Standard Culture Protocol 7. Your expansion beyond this solar system ends immediately. All technological development will be supervised by Council advisors. All education will follow Council curricula. All art, literature, music, and entertainment will be approved by Council censors. The chamber fell silent, except for the subtle humming of alien technologies. And if we refuse? Dayun asked, though she already knew the answer. The entity's form pulsed with what could only be amusement. Then Earth joins our memorial archive. We have conducted this conversation with 437 species over the past. Millennium 31 chose compliance and survived. The rest, ... Double quotes, the hologram returned to showing dead worlds. Choose wisely, humans. Few species receive such extensive ... consideration. Most are simply eliminated upon discovery. Your diplomatic approach has earned you this opportunity. Sujin looked at her small team, then at the vast chamber filled with the representatives of conquered civilizations. Every face showed the same thing, defeat disguised as acceptance. How long do we have to decide? Your orbital cycle, what you call one Earth year, use it wisely. The audience was over. The emergency meeting room deep beneath Seoul had never held so many important people at once. President Choi Woo-bin sat at the head of the long table, his face showing every one of his 60 years. Around him, the most powerful leaders on Earth waited in tense silence. Admiral Kim Soo-jin stood at the front of the room, still wearing the same uniform she had worn to meet the aliens. It seemed like a lifetime ago, though only 3 days had passed. Tell them what you told me, President Choi said quietly. Admiral Kim activated the holographic display. The images were burned into her memory, the dead worlds. The hierarchy's terrible power, the ultimatum that would end humanity as they knew it. 1 year, she said simply. That's what they gave us. 12 months to surrender everything that makes us human. General Han Yu-jin, commander of Earth's combined military forces, listened to every word. When Admiral Kim finished explaining the terms, he brought his fist down on the table so hard that water glasses jumped.
11 months.
To dismantle everything we've built. His voice shook with rage. Our armies, our space fleet, our research programs, they're asking us to lobotomize our own species. Dr. Nam Ju-woo, Earth's best space scientist, had been running calculations on her tablet throughout the briefing. Now she stood and projected her findings onto the main screen. The numbers were terrifying. I've analyzed the data from their ships, she said. Our entire combined fleet, every destroyer, every carrier, every fighter, wouldn't last 10 minutes against a single hierarchy dreadnought. Maybe not even 5 minutes. They have weapons that can crack planets. We have missiles that can barely scratch their hull plating. The room fell silent as the reality sank in. Earth's mightiest weapons were toys compared to what they faced. Commander Park Yoon-ji, leader of Earth's elite space marines, spoke up from her corner of the room. Her voice was barely controlled fury. So we surrender? We just ... give up being human? Let them turn us into their pet slaves? What choice do we have? Asked Finance Minister Lee Dongmin. If we fight, everyone dies. If we surrender, at least some of us survive. Survive as what? Park shot back. As broken copies of ourselves? They'll rewrite our children's minds, delete our history, turn Earth into just another gray world in their empire. President Choi rubbed his temples. The weight of 8 billion lives pressed down on him. Show me the compliance projections. Dr. Nam switched displays. Most major nations have already begun preliminary decommissioning. The Americans started scrapping their space stations yesterday. The Russians are shutting down their military. Shipyards. Europeans are discussing which cultural sites they'll be allowed to preserve. In Asia? The president asked. Mixed responses. Japan is leaning toward compliance. China is undecided. India wants to negotiate terms. General Han stood up abruptly. This is madness. We're talking about surrender before we've even tried to fight. Fight with what? Dr. Nam demanded. Good intentions and harsh language? Their scout ships alone outgun our entire defense grid. The argument continued for hours. Some wanted immediate surrender to minimize casualties. Others called for resistance despite the odds. Few suggested trying to hide humanity's military assets and comply only partially. None of the options were good. As the official meeting broke up, President Choi pulled Admiral Kim aside. What do you really think we should do? Kim was quiet for a long moment. I think we're going to die either way, sir. The question is whether we die as humans or as something else wearing human faces. 3 weeks later, the world watched in shame as military bases worldwide began shutting down. Soldiers turned in their weapons. Space crews abandoned their ships. Research facilities locked their doors. The great powers that had once competed for dominance now competed too. Surrender fastest. But not everyone was giving up. Deep beneath the Korean peninsula, in bunkers built to survive nuclear war, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Colonel Song Hoyanwoo had spent years preparing for the worst-case scenario. He just never imagined it would come from the stars. Around him sat 50 of Earth's brightest minds and bravest soldiers. Scientists, engineers, military officers, and intelligence operatives. All of them had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. You can't win through strength, Colonel Song told the group. His voice was calm, matter of fact. The aliens have us outgunned by factors we can't even calculate. But maybe we don't have to win a war. Maybe we just have to show the galaxy that some things are worth dying for. Engineer Shinbo Young looked up from her holographic blueprints. She had been working around the clock on secret evacuation ships, vessels, designed to carry civilians to hidden colonies in the outer solar system. The transport ships are nearly ready, she reported. Basic life support, minimal weapons, but they can carry 1,000 people each. If we're going to make our final stand, we need to get as many civilians off-world as possible first. Dr. Park. Jin, formerly of the Korean Space Agency, nodded. I've identified 17 asteroid mining stations that could be converted into hidden colonies. The aliens might not find them for years. Admiral Kim Soo-jin, who had been attending the secret meetings since returning from the Alien Council, spoke up. The question isn't whether we can save everyone. We can't. The question is whether we can save enough people to keep the human spirit alive somewhere in the galaxy. Colonel Song looked around the room at the faces of Earth's last hope. Then, we make our choice. If we're going to die, we burn bright enough that the whole galaxy sees our fire. The resistance had begun. The year had passed faster than anyone wanted. Now the alien fleet hung in space beyond the moon like a dark cloud that covered half the sky. Admiral Kim Soo-jin stood on the bridge of the ESS Taeokji, Earth's flagship, and watched through the viewport as more and more alien ships dropped out of hyperspace. They looked like insects, thousands of black metal shapes with glowing red eyes, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. Behind her, Lieutenant Park Min-ho was counting the enemy vessels on his scanner. 3,000 and still coming, Admiral? Maybe more. Kim nodded. She had expected this. Earth's entire defense fleet numbered exactly 312 ships. Every destroyer, every cruiser, every fighter that could still fly had been gathered for this moment. Wasn't nearly enough, but it was all they had. Signal the fleet, she ordered. All ships to battle stations. The communication officer's hand shook as he opened channels to every ship in the human fleet. Kim picked up the microphone and looked out at the stars one last time. Somewhere out there, hidden in the asteroid belt and the moons of Jupiter, were the evacuation ships carrying 2 million civilians, children who would never see Earth's blue skies, families torn apart by humanity's last desperate gamble. All stations, this is Admiral Kim, she said into the microphone. Her voice was steady, calm. Today we show the universe what humanity truly means. We do not yield. We do not kneel. We fight. The first shots came from Captain Yoon Taemin's destroyer, the Soul. His ship launched every missile it had in a single massive salvo. The weapons streaked across space like falling stars, brilliant points of light racing toward the alien fleet. When they hit, they created beautiful flowers of fire and energy against the dark hulls. For a moment, Kim allowed herself to hope. The explosions were huge. Surely they had done some damage. Then the alien ship fired back. The soul simply disappeared. 1 second it was there, a proud vessel with 300 crew members. The next second it was expanding gas and twisted metal. Captain Yoon and his entire crew had been vaporized in an instant. "God help us," whispered someone behind Kim. The alien fleet began to move forward like a tide of death. Their weapons were beyond anything Earth had imagined, beams of energy that could cut a ship in half, missiles that could track their targets across millions of miles, some kind of radiation weapon that made human crews simply stop working, but the human ships kept fighting. The destroyer Busan charged straight at the alien line, firing everything it had before 3 enemy ships focused their fire on it. The cruiser Daegu tried to protect a group of smaller vessels and lasted almost 2 minutes under concentrated fire before its hull broke apart. The fighters were fast as they could dodge and weave between the alien ships for precious seconds before being swatted down like flies. On Earth's surface, 8 billion people watched the battle through every telescope. Every satellite, every camera that could see space. In Seoul, crowds gathered in the streets to watch the sky. In New York, people stood on rooftops crying as they saw their defenders die. In Mumbai, families huddled around television screens as the news anchors tried to describe the impossible. Kim's ship shuddered as an alien beam passed close by. Half the bridge lights went out and she could smell burning electronics. "Hull breach. On decks 4 and 5, reported the damage control officer. We're losing atmosphere. Keep firing," Kim ordered. All weapons, continuous fire. The Taegaji's main guns hammered at an alien cruiser. Shot would have been enough to destroy any human ship, but they barely scratched the enemy's armor. Still, they kept shooting. It was all they could do. One by one, Earth's defenders fell. The carrier engine launched every fighter it had before being cut in half. The battleship Gwangju rammed an alien destroyer, both ships exploding in a ball of nuclear fire. The submarine Mokpo, somehow still fighting in the vacuum of space, fired its last torpedo before enemy fire found it. Kim felt the deck shake again. This time the lights didn't come back on. Admiral called the communication officer, getting a signal from Colonel Song in the outer system. Kim grabbed the radio headset as another explosion rocked the ship. Through the static and interference, she could hear Song's voice from the hidden colonies. "Admiral Kim, are you receiving? The evacuation ships made it."
Evacuation ships?
Kim looked around her dying bridge.
F.
Half her crew was wounded or dead. Through the cracked viewport, she could see alien ships beginning to position themselves. Over Earth, soon they would start bombing the planet itself. "We're here, Hyunwoo," she said into the radio. "We did what we could." The first orbital bombardment beams lanced down toward Earth's surface. From space, they looked like golden spears. Thrown by angry gods? Where they touched the ground, mountains turned to glass and cities became fire. Kim watched her beautiful blue world begin to burn. The clouds turned black with smoke. The oceans began to boil. Everything she had ever known was dying. Remember? "Us, Hyunwoo," she said into the radio as her ship's hull began to crack. "Remember that when they came to make us slaves, we chose to remain free. Every flag fell today, but our banner still burns bright among the stars." The transmission ended in static and fire. Earth's last transmission to the universe was silence. 5 years General Song Hyunwoo had counted every single day since Earth died. He stood in the memorial chamber of Colony Base Alpha, carved deep into the asteroid series. The wall stretched from floor to ceiling, covered with names etched in metal. 8 billion names. Every person who had lived on Earth when the alien ships came. His finger traced one name near the top: Admiral Kim Soo-jin. Below it, President Choi Woo-bin, Captain Lee Dae-yoon, Commander Park Yoon-ji, all the brave souls who had chosen to fight instead of surrender. all dead now, turned to ash when the hierarchy burned their world. General, a voice interrupted his thoughts. Agent Kong Su-ben stood at attention behind him. She wore the gray uniform of a council worker, perfect for blending in on alien worlds. But her eyes held the fire of someone who remembered Earth's blue skies. Report, Song said without turning around. The mission was successful, sir. I spent 8 months on the world they call New Harmony. It used to be the home of a species called the Telleri. Now it's just another council factory world, Song finally turned to face her. Kang looked tired. Working undercover among the aliens took its toll on everyone. What did you learn? The hierarchy believes we're extinct, she said. Completely wiped out. They've marked Earth as culturally cleansed and moved on to other targets. As far as they know, humanity is just another entry in their database of dead species. Was good news, but Song didn't smile. Good news was rare these days. Anything else? Yes, sir. The Telleri aren't all dead. Some of them are still alive, hiding in the asteroid belts around their old homeworld. They've been there for 30 years, waiting for a chance to strike back. Dr. Lim Chan-woo entered the chamber, carrying a datapad covered with star charts. In species files, the scientist had aged badly in the past 5 years. His hair was completely gray now, and he walked with a slight limp from a mining accident 2 years ago. General, you need to see this, Dr. Lim said, activating a holographic display. Agent Kong's discovery matches what we've been finding throughout the galaxy. We've made contact with 17 other supposedly extinct species. They're all hiding, just like us. The hologram showed a map of local space. Red dots marked dead worlds, planets the hierarchy had destroyed for refusing to surrender. But now there were green dots too, hidden colonies, secret bases, survivors living in the dark between the stars. The galaxy is full of ghosts, General, Dr. Lim continued. The Viridians have been hiding in gas giant atmospheres for 60 years. The Korthok built cities inside hollow asteroids. The Zelthari live on generation ships that never stop moving. Every species that the hierarchy tried to destroy, some of them survived. Song studied the display. It was amazing and terrible. At the same time, it's amazing that so many had found ways to survive. Terrible that the hierarchy had tried to destroy so many different peoples. Have any of them tried to fight back, he asked. A few small raids here and there. Nothing organized. Most of them are just focused on staying hidden and staying alive. They're scared, General. The hierarchy has ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. No one remembers what freedom looks like. In the training sector of the colony, young recruits practiced combat drills. These were children who had been born after Earth's destruction, raised in the cold metal corridors of asteroid bases. They had never felt rain on their faces or seen a sunset. But the older survivors made sure they knew what they were fighting. For Captain Chen Hai-jin was 23 years old and had spent her entire life in space. She was born on one of the evacuation ships during the long journey to the asteroid belt. Earth was just a story to her, but it was a story that burned bright in her imagination. She stood before a group of new recruits telling them about oceans and forests, about cities full of light and music. My mother used to tell me about Seoul in the spring, she said to the young faces looking up at her. Cherry trees blooming along the river, people walking in the parks, children playing in gardens, full of flowers. That's what we're fighting to build again someday. After the training session, Captain Chen joined General Song and Dr. Lim in the strategy room. Fresh tactical displays showed hierarchy, patrol routes, and military positions throughout local space. I've been studying their patterns, Captain Chen said, pointing to the moving dots on the screen. The hierarchy is vast, but they're spread thin. They have to control thousands of worlds with the same number of ships, and they've grown comfortable, lazy. Song raised an eyebrow. Explain. 1,000 years, no one has fought back. They expect every species to either surrender immediately or die quickly. They're not prepared for a long war against an enemy they can't find. Dr. Lim nodded. She's right. Their patrols follow predictable routes. Their response times are slow. They're not watching for threats from extinct species, because extinct species aren't supposed to be threats. Song looked at the wall of names again. 8 billion people dead because they refused to kneel. But their sacrifice had bought something precious, time and secrecy for the survivors to prepare.
Ignore.
All the ghost colonies, he said finally. Tell them Earth's children are ready to remind the galaxy what resistance means. It's time to wake the dead. The long game was about to begin, 20 years. Admiral Chen Haijin had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. She stood on the bridge of the ESS New Earth, humanity's flagship rebuilt from salvaged metal and burning determination. Around her, the combined fleet of the Free stretched across space like a river of stars, ships of every shape and design. United by one simple idea, that freedom was worth dying for, the signal came at exactly 1,200 hours Galactic Standard Time. Across 1,000 worlds, the revolution began. On Telleri Prime, workers in the slave factories suddenly threw down their tools and picked up hidden weapons. The hierarchy guards were overwhelmed in minutes. On the mining world of Kesh 7, the supposedly extinct Corvani emerged from deep tunnels, their spiral-shaped ships rising from underground hangars like metal flowers blooming in reverse. In the gas giant systems of the Zephyr Nebula, crystalline fighters that had been hiding in the storm clouds for decades suddenly appeared, their wings catching starlight as they dove toward hierarchy patrol ships. Every extinct species was extinct. No more. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display as green dots appeared across the galaxy. Each dot was a world throwing off its chains, a people remembering what it meant to be free. Her communication officer was barely keeping up with all the incoming signals. "Admiral, we're getting reports from every sector," Lieutenant Kim Eugene called out. "The Villani just took their homeworld back. The Endorian colonies are in full revolt. The hierarchy garrison at Proxima Station has surrendered." Chen nodded. 20 years of careful planning, secret meetings, and whispered messages had led to this moment. Every supposedly dead species had been contacted, armed, and coordinated. The ghosts of the galaxy were finally ready to haunt their oppressors. But the real target was still ahead of them. Earth hung in space like a wounded animal, surface scarred by 2 decades of hierarchy occupation. Where once there had been blue oceans and green continents, now there were gray cities built by alien architects and brown wastelands where nothing human remained. But Chen could see signs of life returning. In the polar regions, patches of green were growing back. Earth was healing itself slowly but surely. "Signal from General Song," her communication officer reported. On the main screen, the face of General Song Haiyan-Wu appeared. He looked ancient now, his hair completely white, his face lined with decades of struggle. But his eyes were still bright with the fire that had kept humanity alive in the darkness. "Admiral," he said with a slight smile. "Are you ready to go home?" "Ready, General? The fleet is in position." Song's image was broadcasting from Ceres Base, where the survivors had built their hidden civilization.
How?
Around him, Chen could see the faces of other survivors, the children of Earth, who had never given up hope. "Then let's show the galaxy what humans can do," Song said. The hierarchy had not been idle during the 20 years of occupation. Their ships surrounded Earth in multiple defensive layers, enormous dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, fighter swarms that could blot out the sun, orbital weapons platforms that could crack moons. It should have been impossible to break through such defenses. But the hierarchy had made one crucial mistake. They had forgotten how to fight an enemy that refused to surrender. Admiral Chen opened fleet communications to every ship in the massive armada surrounding her. Human vessels flew beside alien craft in perfect formation, the angular raiders of the Villani, spiral carriers of the Corvani, the crystal fighters of the Zephyrians, dozens of other designs from species that had supposedly been extinct for decades. "All ships. This is Admiral Chen," she broadcast. Her voice carried across space to every captain, every crew member, every pilot who had come to this moment. 20 years ago, they tried to erase us from history. They thought they could break our spirits by burning our worlds. They were wrong. Today, we write a new chapter. The first wave hit the hierarchy defenses like a hammer. Ships that had been hiding in asteroids and gas clouds for decades suddenly appeared at point-blank range, their weapons already firing. The Hierarchy fleet, designed to fight conventional battles against conventional enemies, was completely unprepared for opponents who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. A Volani raider, no bigger than a Hierarchy fighter, rammed straight into the bridge of a dreadnought. Corvani spiral ship spun through a formation of enemy cruisers, its rotating hull slicing through their armor like a blade. Zephyrian crystal fighters moved in perfect coordination, their energy weapons, creating patterns of destruction that looked almost like art. And through it all, the human ships pressed forward. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and flying vessels held together with spare parts and prayers. But they had something the Hierarchy had forgotten: existed the absolute refusal to quit. The Hierarchy's ancient overlords, those beings of metal and light who had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, tried desperately to coordinate their defense. But they had grown soft and slow during centuries of unchallenged power. Their ships were designed to intimidate and overwhelm, not to fight, against enemies who welcomed death rather than accept slavery. Within 6 hours, Earth's orbital defenses were shattered. Hierarchy ships fled or surrendered. The few that tried to fight to the end were quickly destroyed by the combined fury of a dozen species that had spent decades planning this moment. Admiral Chen stood at her viewport as the first shuttles headed down to Earth's surface. Among them was General Song, finally going home after 20 years in exile. In his hands he carried a flag, Earth's blue marble against a field of stars, surrounded by the symbols of every species that had joined the fight for freedom. "Signal to all ships," Chen ordered. "Welcome to the first day of the new galaxy." The banner of Earth was rising once again,